Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Senor Nerd Podcast. I'm here with Ramon,
Hey guys.
and we're here today to talk about the 2023 remake of The Little Mermaid. And this is not a movie that I expected to ever talk about. If you go back and you listen to the trailer reactions that we did, I was a little bit nervous about it. But man, I can admit when I'm wrong, and maybe Ramon, you'll tell me otherwise. But this was a movie that I ended up enjoying a lot. How about yourself? Am I crazy here? Was this the best live action remake that we've gotten so far? Tell me how you feel about this movie.
You know what, Carlos? I think it might. Um, People were actually surprised. I was like bragging about like, oh man, it was such a good movie, such a good movie. They're like, wait, first of all, you went to see The Little Mermaid, and then just second of all, they're like, wait, really? Like, you really think so? I'm like, yeah, it has to be like at least one like top place or maybe second place of the live action remake. So I'm
Yeah.
really excited to talk about it. But yeah, absolutely, I was definitely really entertained the whole time too. Um,
Yeah, man, because in the past, I have not been like loving some of these. I was thinking about like my best favorite one, and I was actually thinking about the Jungle Book, but I don't think that even
yeah.
counts as a live action remake, just because the cartoon itself, the movie, it's so short, and they just added so much to it, because it's based on like on a book. This one, I can honestly say that like, even more than Beauty and the Beast, I loved it, man. I don't know, they got me. It could be the fact that I'm gonna say it, Little Mermaid was my favorite Disney movie when I was a little kid and I used to watch it, when I used to live in Mexico. That's the one like really implanted in me. Like I've always loved Ariel. So to me, to like, like another movie that's one of my favorite ones was Mulan. But when I saw the remake of Mulan, I did not love that movie. Like if we don't even get me really start talking about Mulan, because I have nothing really positive to say about it. But then this movie that I really loved was a child. Now seeing the remake, I don't know if it's because they actually follow the formula, and I don't know if there is really a format that you should be following, but I just overall came out very positive about it, man. I kept thinking like, man, like I'm gonna actually be talking about this movie and saying like, go watch it, spend your money for it.
I think the formula is don't fuck it up. uh, no, it's funny too because like I was like looking up an article or maybe it was like an interview with Lin Manuel Miranda, which ever since he did Hamilton, he's been doing so great with all these projects that he's involved in, and he was one of the main people producers I think involved in
Oh,
The Little Mermaid.
really?
Yeah, and one
That
of
makes sense.
in one of the interviews, I think they were like, "Oh, what's your goal for The Little Mermaid?" And he's like, yeah, don't mess
Mm.
up, like don't mess up. And you
N-
know what, like
y-
we question that all the time, like why don't people like look back and look at their stuff and say like this is not good and then to stop making.
No, and you know what? That actually makes sense with the Aquafina song that she got because she played the voice of the bird.
Right.
And I'm like, now that you're saying like all those lyrics, 100% speak out Lin Manuel on it. So I'm like, yes, I see the work, his production, his hand of production in that movie. Um, but I mean, like, what did you think about like the main girl, like Halle Bailey? Like, I thought she was awesome. Like, I think she really, really portrayed Ariel, like a live action Ariel. Like, any hater out there, like, if you see this movie and you still come out hitting on her, like, dude, there's something wrong with you, like 100%.
I mean, again, there's something to be said about like all the criticism, especially everything that people had before the movie came out, and thinks about race, thinks about like the way that it should really be. And first of all, we were like, dude, they're mermaids. Like, who cares? Like, it's time for reinvention, right? In modern day society, we really, yes, there's something that kind of, if you're gonna remake something, some would stick to the classic version a little bit, right? But I think with diversity and inclusivity, I think that's a beautiful way of a beautiful thing to like redo, right?
Oh,
Because
100%.
I don't need to see a movie that's like fake, or in a sense it kind of it looks like we're become outsiders to it, right? First of all, it's a love story between a mermaid and a man. So but you know what, but speaking to that, and before I talk a little bit more about Holly, it was one of those things where like I watching the movie and I'm like, not only is it like so beautiful and colorful, but just like the diversity in it was great. And again, just for modern age, and especially seeing a movie that's still meant for kids, ultimately it's the best, it's the way it should be. Anybody with kids, you have a daughter, right? I'm not there yet, but it's, I think anybody that you would want to show this to your kids, that's what you want to see, right? You want to see people coexisting, you want to see mermaids, fish, birds, like humans of all different colors. But yes, she as an
Yeah.
actress did great. Again, without going with any kind of criteria about her, because she's like a young actress, I was really impressed by her. Like I always wonder how people who are doing like hybrid human slash merman or like hybrid like chimera type of like things, like how they're gonna do when they have a bunch of CGI attached to them or something like that. But I don't know, man. She looked great. She sounded great. Like, you know, her voice lines. And I think her, especially the part of the movie when she loses her voice, she did great. I mean,
Yeah.
to be a gesture, like no speaking actor and just kind of, you know, do a good job to like do your facial expressions, your gestures and be believable. Like that's amazing. That's all I needed. I think that was the true test right there. Is when she lost her voice. I was like, oh man, absolutely. Like I'm falling for this girl, and she can't even talk. Like, okay,
No, for anybody that has a problem with this movie and it's just like not My Little Mermaid, I would tell them to go watch Splash, with Tom Hanks. Like, go watch that movie. There you go. Like, there's your Little Mermaid if you don't want to have this live action and you want to reject it. But the one character that I was having like problems with the casting or the way he looked, when I first saw the trailer was Sebastian, man. Like I just could not get on board with the way this crab looked. And just the idea that I all my life thought that Sebastian was a lobster.
you too.
Yeah, so the idea that Sebastian was actually a crab, and I went back and saw like the original one, and I'm like, holy crap! Like he's always been a crab.
How
Uh,
would people? Yeah,
I don't know, man. It's just like I guess in the cartoon his claws are a little bit more bigger, so it just kind of gives you that lobster look to him.
yeah,
But in this movie, man, like he stole the whole movie for me. Like Sebastian, like any part that he was like, any joke or any kind of like storytelling coming from him, like I loved it, man. Like that guy was carrying this movie with me. Not saying that the whole performance of everybody wasn't good, because I mean, I got some people are like I want to talk about. I want to
yeah,
talk about
absolutely.
Melissa McCarthy. I want to talk more about
Javier.
Javier, and it's just like but I just want to say like out loud right now that Sebastian stole this movie from me. Like his lines of delivery and his jokes, like when he like comes out of nowhere from that hat and he's like kiss the girl, it's just like totally like
Oh
cracked me out
goodness,
because I
yes.
even forgot like he was even in that boat or even trying to accomplish that goal.
Absolutely. I mean, and you know what? It's funny because he's another actor who comes from Hamilton too. And like I
Hmm.
saw, I mean, I didn't get the pleasure of seeing this cast in Hamilton, but I remember when I was watching Hamilton, I was like, man, these guys are so good. And I remember rewatching,
Talented, man.
yeah, I remember watching Hamilton when Disney Plus like actually released like the live, or not the live broadcast, but the broadcast movie version.
Hmm.
And he was amazing in that show. So like to have someone that you're somewhat familiar, if you like musicals and you like that type of like genre, man, he was so good. But I don't know. And maybe because I had the imagination and I could draw like animals since I was like a little kid. You know what? That's one of the most searched questions right now on Google is it was Sebastian a lobster or was he a crab? And I'm like, how? Like, how do you get lobster? But you know
No.
what? We're watching this when we're little kids, so who knows? Maybe people have that weird Mandela effect that they're like, no, it was a lobster a long time ago. I swear, I swear.
And then the one that I feel like they kind of did drop the ball on was like Flounder, man. Like I felt like Flounder every time that I saw him,
Yeah.
it was like he was like secretly saying like "kill me," like just kill me. Like oh man, I felt bad for him because like I understand you're trying to probably keep it to the species of fish he's portrayed in the movie in the original one, but I'm pretty sure they could have found a better, realistic, more yellow looking fish than what we got. It just felt like we got this albino fish that's ready to like pass away at any moment. So that was the part that I found a little bit creepy with the whole live action of any of the sea creatures. That's the only one that really bothered me, Flounder.
But you know what's funny about that is like I think if they would have released more images of him beforehand, maybe they would have done a Sonic the Hedgehog type of thing where like people gave it so much hate that they would have fixed it, right? But here's the thing though. My thing is like, how can you have Ursula who has freaking tentacles for a lower half, right? Like think of the anatomy, right? We already have mermaids. Mermaids at least not that difficult to think is like bottom half is fish, but then you have this woman who's like tentacles for like his bottom half. So why couldn't you make Flounder look a little bit more goofy, right? Like, what would
Yeah.
have been the stretch of the imagination if you have Flounder resemble,
Even just to sell
yeah,
like toys, man. Like, come on,
yeah,
Disney. You're Disney. You want to make a buck out of everything. Like, just make him a little bit more like cuter. Honestly,
yeah,
my one note with that. Well, actually, I have a second note, but yeah, like Flounder, they kind of like messed it up on my point. And just real quick before we get off the actor that does the voice for Sebastian, I want to
David,
say
yeah.
real quick, just send a shout out if anybody has not seen Blind Spotting. It's a 2018 movie with him in it. Amazing. it'll blow your expectations. If you watch a trailer and you're like, oh, this looks all right, but once you watch it, it's one of the best movies that I've seen for that year. So definitely just want to do a quick shout out to Blind Spotting.
No, it's awesome. And I think in general, like he's again one of those Hamilton crews that's just so good. But man, okay, so we're talking about the animal sidekicks, right? All right, let's talk about Aquafina, right? And right before then, for my little viewers on YouTube, here's my commercial break. Everybody hates coconuts, right? No, it is funny, man. Aquafina as that seagull, that bird. I thought it was pretty funny. Scuttle.
Yeah.
I thought she was funny, right? I'm not gonna lie though, I'm getting a little bit tired of Aquafina and a lot of these like animated ones. Not because she's not great, she's awesome, but I think it's just you hear her so much and you just can't deny that it's her. And sometimes it's really hard to kind of like, get her out of your mind. Like I hear
Yeah.
her, and immediately I was thinking of Shang-Chi and like the rings and everything else, and then just so many other times that I'm like, oh man, she's so funny. But that rap song is kind of what did it for me. When she did that rap song with Sebastian, won me over.
I think that there's a dragon movie too that came out that she does the voice of the dragon.
Raya,
Yeah, Raya. So that's
yeah,
another one. Honestly, this is probably on my bad, but I actually thought like till I came out of that movie, I actually thought that the voice of the bird was from it was Tiffany Haddish, and it was the same problem you're kind of talking about right now. It's the fact that it's either Aquafina or Tiffany Haddish that are doing the voiceovers for a lot of different cartoon characters, a lot of different animated. She was in the Lego movie, the second one. She's just been doing a lot of voice work, and she's the one that right now she's a little bit more on the problematic side. Like a lot of dark stories have come out of her. So I was kind of like, I told my wife like, oh, I was a little bit not okay with Tiffany Haddish doing the voice for the bird, but she's like, no, that was Aquafina, and I'm like, oh, thank God, that actually
yeah.
makes it a lot better, and I can walk away and say like, okay, now I don't have a problem with that whole character at all.
No, no, no. And like I said, for me, and again, just the character in general, right? Like this is what I love about talking about this movie is we don't have to like explain who these characters are and all this stuff, right? Because if you're sitting here listening to some like late 30s, mid 30, like the old dude talk about the Little Mermaid, I hope that you've seen the movie. I hope that you're not
Hey,
coming here for us to
this
teach you.
this movie was not made for my 4-year-old daughter. It was made for my 36-year-ass like bum ass self that I was like 5, 6 when this came out in 1991 or whenever the Little Mermaid came out.
Well, with any of these movies, right? And I still really want to talk about the rest of the movies that we've been doing, but it's like, yeah, absolutely, man. If you're coming here to like find out who the Little Mermaid is, this is not it, right? This is just us who like we grew up watching these movies, and I think we were like, I think when I told Kiara like, hey, let's go watch the Little Mermaid, like not surprising, but it was just more like, wait, it's out already, like, and I jumped to it first day. I think you had an earlier sneak peek to
I,
it.
Yeah, I got an early screening for it. It wasn't too early, but it was just kind of nice enough to like go see it, and I saw it with like like a smaller crowd, and I liked it, man. I liked it a lot. It's just I don't remember there was like an applauding ovation at the
Oh
end
yeah,
of
yeah,
it,
oh yeah.
but if there wasn't one happening with the audience, it was definitely happening inside my head once the movie was over.
In your soul.
In my
No,
soul.
but real quick. So yeah, with Aquafina again, I thought she also did really good. Again, don't love that she's almost on everything in everything now because she's just so familiar. You could tell who it is right away. Like I think Kiara was the first one to react to her voice. But I think after like you listen to her, and I think for the character, she does such a good job playing the character. Kind of a little ditzy, kind of still like plays the hero a couple times because she does. She's really active, especially with Flounder, right?
Dude, when Sebastian was like, "Okay, you'll drop me on when I say the clue," and then she drops them, and then Sebastian's like, "You idiot!"
Yo, and then she's
Yeah.
like, I guess I'm on my own, and then she just kind of flies away. But no, like she was good in it, and then that rap little duo that they had on Ariel's bed was pretty. It's probably one of the best like performances as far as like singing and stuff. Not because
Yeah.
of the rap, but you're right. Also, listening to that, you're like, oh man, Lin Manuel definitely had something to do with this movie, so it was really good.
No, dude, and like I think people were a little bit nervous also with the casting of Melissa McCarthy because I think she's probably like,
Oh,
if not for Javier Bardem, she's like the second kind of like biggest like name attached to this movie. And like I saw the original Little Mermaid, and when I saw Ursula's scenes, man, like she had so much sass to them. Like honestly, Ramon, go back and watch her
oh
scenes, and it's
yeah.
almost like how did they get away with like having this portrayal of this character in in an animated movie in the '90s? But maybe back then things were a lot more okay. But even seeing this movie, I don't feel like they took anything away from that. I still felt like she brought that sass to the character. And dude, if I can buy the soundtrack to that song of her specifically singing that song, like I will buy it and I will listen to that because that's how much I love that song she did.
Well, good news is you don't have to buy it. If you have Apple Music, it's free. I already listened to it once just to kind of hear
Oh
it out. So,
yes. Oh, I know
you
what
know,
I'll be playing tonight.
all right, you're taking a shower and there you are, like under the sea. No, but you know
Oh,
what? It's like, dude, this is why I try not to. Sorry, this is why I try not to like really listen to people when they're giving their. We're in this field right now, right? Like we're doing podcasts about movies, where we're doing reactions, we're doing discussions, and I think one thing that I've learned is that we all have different opinions, we all have different tastes, and I think you shouldn't let the opinion of someone like take away from your experience or maybe your kind of expectation of something. Because before we watched the movie, I was seeing a lot of hate about Melissa McCarthy playing
oh my
Ursula, right?
God.
And I'm
Yeah.
like, oh my god, she's such a great actress, like all the way back from freaking Gilmore Girls, and then through the numerous amount of movies and things that she's done. Like she's so great. I'm like, how can she mess it up? And then to be honest, I think Ursula's parts were probably like what made the movie the most exciting.
So
Um,
cool, man.
so I went into the movie with probably about like 3 hours of sleep. I thought I was gonna fall. I thought I was gonna fall asleep, man. I thought I was gonna fall asleep. So I got the biggest screen. I was like, let's go IMAX with this. I needed this. I want to feel like I'm inside.
I
I'm
saw it in
I'm in the ocean.
IMAX.
Yeah, yeah. I want to feel like I'm in the ocean with them. And I had no problem staying awake because especially when you saw Ursula, you were just like so enamored. You were so like engulfed in her world, right? Everything was dark. It was creepy. Like I want to say her little like medicine cabinet when she had all her potions like were made with bones. Like the details just around her alone was freaking amazing. Like her
Yeah.
little like it's part of her body, but it's how they all have like the hybrid of like clothing slash body pieces that they have going on.
Hmm.
She had her little neck collar that was meant to be like
Oh yeah, like
anglerfish things,
yeah,
like
yeah.
beautiful,
So
man.
cool, man.
Yeah, and so yeah, but yeah, she was definitely great. I think she did phenomenal, and I think definitely she had the best scenes in the whole movie. Like without that, and I can't even think of who else would have played her better, but I don't care because I'm not gonna, we're not gonna remake the Little Mermaid one more time.
No, no, definitely. I think at the end when she became like this gigantic monster, it kind of like plays back to the original one. And I'm not saying like they could have gone a different way with it because, like at this point, I think the movie was a little bit over 2 hours. It could have maybe
Yeah,
not, but it didn't feel like over 2 hours for me specifically. But I think if you need a way to end it, like that was a good way to end it. And I think the difference between maybe in the original is that I think Little Mermaid was actually the one like driving the boat that stabbed her, where I think in the original it might be Eric, the ones that's behind, driving that boat. So, I kind of like that she had like the big winning moment at the end and, she gets the staff and is able to revive her father. And again, I don't want to get to that, but we're talking about Melissa McCarthy. And I want to say like, I loved her introduction because the song wasn't like, hey, 1 minute, 2 minutes, it's done. It felt like it like went on for like 5, 10 minutes, and I loved it. I thought it was just so good, so well. And like to you said, like that whole introduction to her, I wish they would have gone a little bit darker and had actually done, because like anytime she takes the souls from people, they become like these like seaweed little plants. And I almost wish we would have got like a little bit behind the scenes or something in the background. But I guess they just maybe decided that was a little bit too dark for this for
you
this
know,
movie.
well, I thought it was kind of funny, man, because we talked about Flounder, right, and how his character design could have been a little bit different. And I'm like, you have Ursula with like tentacle bottom half, and then you had some weird octopi and other fish that were not like real, at least from my understanding, because like I used to be a big animal fan growing up, a lot of like documentaries, and there was a couple of animals in there that were questionable, like some sea life that I'm like, this is not real, right? And so again, why not add that little extra element of like creepiness? And just because it would have taken like one more effort in creating that like the sign and all that stuff, because yeah, like
Yeah.
Ursula had some really great scenes like in the cartoon and the animated movie. But again, they still did a great job with her. Like I said, just the overall dark atmosphere of her and everything her, and she was like that villainous that you were like, man, I love to be like a fan of hers, right?
Yeah.
Like who cares if she's trying to like freaking get King Triton's like Triton? Like you just want to like side with her for a little bit until she messes with Ariel. Then you're like, hell no, like you stop being a witch and get out of here.
No, man, no, and like some of the things like with this movie at first when I was watching it, I'm like, oh man, they're totally not gonna do Under the Sea the song because like it's normally done like very early in the beginning where it's like, hey, where's Ariel at? And then like I was like, oh, that's kind of disappointed me. They must have taken it out for whatever reason. But man, when that song hit, man, I'm like, hell yes, like perfect movie. Like I almost gave it a 10 score at that point because it's just like it's such a fun song, man. Like
Yeah.
how can you like even like I don't know. I must have been a fool to think they would have gotten rid of that song, because that to me was like, also besides Ursula's song, the second best song of the whole movie.
Were you disappointed that they didn't have instruments, that they weren't playing like yeah, right, a little bit?
But yeah, I mean, Aquaman gave you that, and it was a little silly in that movie. So I could have seen that in this movie, it probably would have been a little bit silly too.
So many
But
times that I want to mention Aquaman. We'll talk about that.
but
Yeah.
I mean, like, like Ariel's father. I mean, he was kind of like using these sea creatures as his servants, so it's not too hard to believe that he could have had an octopus and been like, "Hey, I need you to play the drums for me." Like, it's not. It would
Yeah.
have not been something that I would have been like, "Oh, that's totally not what this movie's going for." So the idea that they didn't do those things is kind of really ridiculous, because it's like you already have Sebastian as the guy that you're like protecting your daughter that you love the most in this world. It's like me saying like to my dog, like, "Hey, you're in charge of my daughter. Make sure she eats. She doesn't fall into any water. Doesn't go with any, like, doesn't fall in love with any random man that she met for a day." It's a little bit ridiculous. It's like, yeah, at that point, you should have just gotten that extra route with the sea creatures.
Yeah, I can't see you putting your little puppy in charge of like Elena. What's like what? No.
I mean, sometimes I do when I leave her in the car. I'm like, Shadow, like, watch her for like a minute.
That's Shadow. See, Carlos has a big dog and he has a little puppy dog, and it's like, it is kind of the same. Yeah, I do agree. Like, because Sebastian's supposed to be his major domo, like his kind of like valet, like the person that's always there and kind of an advisor. But yeah, it is always funny when he's like, oh, in charge of her. But I think King Trident is pretty like confident that his kingdom is safe, and besides her going to like the graveyard for the ships, like unless it's somewhere like there, he doesn't really worry about his people. It kind of seems like so. And trusting the crab kind of makes
Dude,
sense a little.
some of his like design gave me a little bit too much of Zoolander's, like, and if you don't know what I'm talking about, look
Wait,
up
who? King Trident though?
yeah, King Trident. So like look up Zoolander mermaid commercial, and you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. But like some of his like design, I'm like, something about it doesn't seem right to me. And again, like, my one little complaints with him in some of the early scenes, he looked a little bit kind of goofy and weird, and it just totally gave me Zoolander vibes. And I'm sure that's not what they wanted from me. So that's another kind of like little complaint. Very small.
No, I mean, yeah, but I do like, yeah, because it's weird, man. It's weird seeing how they were gonna deal with this in live action, right? Because in the movies, they're basically wearing like seashells and like, they're obviously half naked because they're mermen. I mean, sorry, mer people. But it's like at the same time too with him. I liked his armor. It was kind of cool, like that
Oh yeah,
pearlized, like
yeah,
that
the
pearlized
shells.
stuff. It's pretty good. It looked great. But even some of the other character designs, or what's it called, costume designs, I guess, even though CGI was pretty great. Like some of the Ariel sisters looked really great, man.
Yeah.
Like amazing fins, amazing dressings, like the coloring. I was really impressed a lot with that. Before we get off too much of this, because I totally forgot when you were talking about Under the Sea. I did want to make the note that I do love that song too, and I do agree with you. Like, who can listen to that song without being like happy, really enjoying, kind of dancing? And you actually reminded me of this like little memory. I remember being like probably maybe like third or second grade music class back in Chicago, and my music teacher put The Little Mermaid, like the whole animated movie, for us
Oh,
because
nice.
back then, it was around the time when it came out. Yeah, sadly, elementary school in the early 90s. But it's like he put it on, and I remember that so good. Like I can't remember the teacher. I remember some of my friends, obviously, but I remember the movie, and I remember Pocahontas and a couple of these other movies, right? And I think the point of that in music class was like some of these original movies had such great like freaking soundtracks, like such great like music. What's it called? Like just music in general.
Yeah.
And they were doing like a lot of it all orchestra. Like there was no like too many like electronics involved. It was like beautiful orchestra music, or it was like just done very beautifully, that it makes sense for like a teacher to be like, hey, listen to this, watch this. It's a masterpiece in music. And it made me wonder back then too, looking back, it's like, did you ever think that the music was only going to get better? Right? Like here
Mm,
we are like years later watching like remakes of these, like not the live action part, but just the
yeah.
fact that even musically, like they're doing so much more with the way that these people sing and how much better range they have in singing. And then like so now with like synthesizers and like electronic, and then still these like classical instruments, like yeah, it's amazing, man. So yeah, like the
Yeah.
music alone is so beautiful.
No, no, just like the the original Lion King, like the music, like you hear it all the time, whether it's in plays or high school plays, any kind of plays, like they're doing the Lion King, like that song, it's always going to be a hit. And even when you heard it in the remake of the Lion King, even though I didn't love that movie because the animals were just too real for me, like I wanted a little bit more silliness, and just the fact that in this movie, like one of the movie things that we praised was the fact that Ursula's song was so good, the back like the the surrounding environment was just so dark. But in the Lion King, they totally took away Scar's song, man. Like they did not have the guts to do that song, and I guess the reason why was because it was a little bit too Hitlery, whatever that means. But it's like, dude, that's one
Okay.
of the best songs from like the Lion King. So it's like, how are you gonna do that? And probably, I honestly think I might have loved it a little bit more had I not gotten rid of that song. But it's
Yeah.
like just the fact that Little Mermaid went there with Ursula, like another applause to it, man.
Okay, so we're there now, right? We're there now. Like regarding, we're gonna talk about at least the Lion King real quick.
Yeah, yeah.
So and we
Well,
won't talk. Yeah, yeah.
before you do that, just real quick, guys, I know we don't always do these kind of reviews. If you're like, hey, you guys, I love you guys because you guys talk about anime, but I really love like when you guys are doing random stuff like the Little Mermaid. Like, tell us about it, man. We have a the YouTube channel, we have like an Instagram, we have all these places where you can comment and let us know like, hey, this is the kind of stuff that we want to listen to. So please feel free to like reach out and tell us what you want us to talk about because I really would like to get more from our audience. And if you haven't done so, please subscribe, give us 5 stars wherever possible, because all this love that we're getting from the people that have reached out, it's really, really making us like try to improve ourselves and make just bring whatever we can 100%, even if we're not 100% feeling under the weather or there's personal things going on in our lives. We just want to do the best we can to bring some laughter and bring some joy to your lives. So again, just follow us. But Ramon, don't let me stop you from saying all the shitty movies that Disney has made over the past like couple of years, because I'm there with you, buddy.
Well, beautifully said. And yes, we do take suggestions because I love to hear like people want to hear what we have to say about certain things. So I know we have some requests coming up. We'll get to those eventually. But all right, so we're kind of there yet, right? And we'll keep talking about the Little Mermaid. But you brought up Lion King, right? Lion King is by far my favorite movie of any
Mm,
Disney movie I mean, I'm talking about the original animated one, right?
yeah, yeah.
Not even the one that is knocked off of like the one White Lion cheap movie that there was like before the Lion King. But
Yeah,
no, like
no.
the original Lion King is probably one of my favorite movies, and it's also one of my favorite movies in general, like overall. If I'm talking about some serious live action, crazy like Inception type of movies, like no, Lion King is one of my favorite movies. I grew up loving it, and I still as an adult, like I want to say I play it once a month as I'm cooking. I'll play here and there as I'm getting ready. So it's one of those movies that I'm really attached to, just because I think it had a lot to do with like maybe my love for Shakespeare because it's based off the play Hamlet.
Hamlet, yeah.
Yeah, and it's a great story. But regardless, okay. So my problem with the Lion King remake was that, right? Like I don't even want to talk about that. So that scene that you're talking about, yes, in the original Lion King movie, that Scar's song was set. Not only did you have the hyenas marching and singing with like this crazy like legs posturing up a little kind of high. So, like you said, very Nazi like, right? But
Yeah.
also, you had like a red background to the whole thing. So, as they were doing this, they had a red background. You had the hyenas marching in that fashion. You had Scar standing on top of that one rod, like being very militant, very Hitler like, right?
Yeah.
And I found out that like recently, when I was watching The Lion King on Disney Plus now, they still have that scene, but even the background's yellow and it's a little different. Not talking about the new live version, but I'm saying like
Oh,
the
the
animated.
anime. Oh, fuck,
So even,
man.
even even the animated one, if you don't have one of the original VHS copies, which people are like, "What's VHS?" If you don't have one of the video cassette copies, like yeah, like now that even the background to that song, it's different. It's yellow. It's a little bit livelier. They still have the same type of marching, but I think they did take focus away from it because, I mean, dude, Disney was not
Dude,
the. This is not the only thing Disney did. They did a lot of
no.
inappropriate, weird
Oh,
stuff back then.
no, dude, and like you actually got me to talk about something real quick. Like my wife gets tired of me hearing this, but I don't have a big collection, but I have a collection of few movies. People, you need to buy physical media. Just the idea that some of these movies could be taken away from you and you won't be able to stream them or watch them anywhere, or they could be modified. If you have a DVD, I'm gonna say DVD because I'm sure The Lion King might have came out in a DVD format.
Yeah,
If you have a DVD of The Lion King, Disney cannot come to your house and edit that version of the Lion King. Like, you have that version, you have the version that Ramon so perfectly described. I had no idea, so just you mentioning that pisses the fuck out of me, Ramon, because they also did that with. I made fun of Splash early in the scene, but they also edited Splash when it first was on Disney Plus. They made her hair longer so that you couldn't see her butt, and it's just like it pisses me off when they go back and edit these movies that to me they're kind of like not it was just a different time back then, but you don't need to change them, man. Like, you just need to like understand that you need to talk to your kids and say like this was done because of these reasonings, but like today, like obviously we wouldn't do that, or that wouldn't get away with something like that. But yeah, like I have to say, like, buy physical media, people. I know it's so easy to buy things and save them on your iCloud or whatever, but even those, you can buy a movie from Amazon and keep in mind that in 10 years that movie could, even though you might have spent $25 for it, they have the right to take it away from you because of whatever licensing that they have with it. So even though you buy something for 25 and it's in the cloud on Prime, they can still take that movie away from you. So just keep that in mind. So again, big supporter of like buying physical media over
Yeah.
here.
And I think even like you said, just the fact that there is the version that was intended to be the first one, or like the main, like, that one original version, and whether it was not like perfectly politically correct back then, there's still
Yeah.
something to be said about that. Was the movie we grew up with. That's the movie that we had. And not saying that I would rush to show my future kids and be like, hey, look at this movie and look at this scene and this is what it means. But as adults, it's a really great conversation piece. And some of these things are becoming collector's items.
Dude,
um
it's a 6-year-old. I didn't know what a Hitler was. Like, I don't know what a Nazi is. Like, I saw Indiana Jones multiple times. Probably
and
still
you
didn't
still
know what
didn't
I.
get it.
Yeah, yeah.
And so that's what I'm saying. And there's so much darker like stories about like Disney and Walt Disney, and kind of his involvement with all that world. So we'll save that for another
Yeah.
podcast. But no. So yeah. So then back to it. So yeah. So that
Hey,
was one of, yeah.
but just really quick, just because we're talking about like Disney and inappropriate things. But if you ever look up like the original VHS, like the art in the cover of the Little Mermaid. I think somebody must have, like, there was complaints back then about something looking like genitalia on it. So it's just like
Ooh.
they even got in trouble for that back in the day because artists were purposely doing these kind of like weird things to the movie. So it's just like kind of sucks they were getting away with that kind of things.
But that's not the only thing, man. And
Oh,
for you
there's so
guys,
much.
yeah,
Yeah, there's so much.
for you guys listening, and I hope that you guys, they're adults ones, not some of my younger, like some of the younger people that do listen. It's like search inappropriate like imagery in Disney movies, like Disney animated movies, because they used to like throw in the word sex into random movies. Like I think in Pocahontas, there's one of the scenes where like the leaves are kind of flying around, and people have paused it at a certain point where it'll spell out like sex and stuff like that. So yeah, it's like 100, like, so like even as an artist, and I think when I was little, I wanted to be an animator, I wanted to be a cartoonist, and I remember thinking to myself, I'm like, dude, I just never could see myself as an adult.
Secretly putting that, yeah.
Yeah, like what the frick, like what, like
Oh,
so yeah, so there is something to be said about like having those like old things that you just really realize that, and now they're doing it the right way. Right now you have like people like Pixar, like studios like Pixar doing like all these Easter eggs where people are kind of like living within the same universe. Like even in this movie, right, like I was talking to my wife about it when we left, I'm like, they focused a lot on Eric being, not from that island, and not the queen's son, and who his original family was, right? So I don't know if you guys have heard, but like in Frozen, you have Anna and Elsa, and there's the whole theory that's kind of half been confirmed and then half not, how Tarzan is their little brother.
yeah.
And
Hmm.
then Eric is kind of similar. Like I think even when we looked it up, because I'm like, oh man, they were focusing so much on it. Is there any updated news about who Eric belongs to, or who he's families with? Closest we could get to right now is maybe Cinderella. But anyway, so cool, right? So that's what Disney should be doing. That's what these animators, these people who create movies for kids, and adults who enjoy those movies, should be doing, like fun Easter eggs. They should be done like fun things that you can kind of like find these, like discover these things that you wouldn't see right away, instead
Yeah.
of doing perverted freaking imagery, or like words, or like Nazi symbolism. Like what the heck? But
No, no, dude, and like, yeah, like, to your point, I think the reason why they didn't choose to do the whole Tarzan related to Frozen's maybe because the first Frozen made over $1 billion. But then after the second Frozen came out, and it was such a disaster with the storytelling, people just did not like it. They didn't enjoy any of the songs. I think now it would be like a big idea on their part to actually try to do this connection, because the moment you introduce Tarzan as a connection of Frozen, dude, all of a sudden I'm buying Frozen and Tarzan merchandise because like I love Tarzan, the original animated movie. So yeah, man, like they need to like lean more into these ideas that
Yeah.
people did the work for you, so you just gotta tie them in and you'll make fans happy.
And it's fun. It's fun. But yeah, so real quick, just getting back to the Lion King, because so anyways, yeah, that's what's up with that seed, right? And so you agree, like I totally agree, but let's the shit talking begin about some of these live actions. For me, loving the Lion King
Wait,
so
wait.
much. Yeah.
Are we done with the Little Mermaid? I
No,
just
no,
gotta
no.
ask
We'll
you.
get back to it. But I
'Cause-
wanted to finish the Lion King because
okay,
that like
yeah. No, no,
no,
not
no.
good.
I'm saying that was just not. Well, yeah, you're right. You know, that was just one of my ones that I was really disappointed with in by comparison, right? We're talking about the Little Mermaid right now that did such a beautiful job keeping the story pretty close. I think the scenes that they involved and the scenes that they created for it were like beautifully added, not like taking things out that didn't make sense or just kind of ruining it. But I don't know. I kind of guess the disappointment comes in. I wish more movies would have been like the Little Mermaid and they would have
No,
done a better job.
no, no. And I mean, dude, I welcome you talking about like I want to hear more about like these disappointments, because like honestly, if we're gonna go there, like I'll mention Mulan because if my 6 year old self, Little Mermaid was like my favorite movie, as like a little bit more of a little bit an adult kid, maybe even teenager, like Mulan was, it still continues to be like my favorite adult animated Disney movie that I can watch at any point because of the message, the songs, everything about it I love. And the live action was a big disappointment to my heart. But as far as like the Little Mermaid, like I just want to talk about like Prince Eric real quick. And I know you mentioned about how he's adopted. The only thing I want to say about him, man, I don't feel like he's right for my girl Ariel, man. Like I don't think Eric really cares for Ariel. I think Eric's a little bit like, hey, this girl saved me, and I want to find her. And my mom keeps pressure about being married, so I'll just marry her, so get her off my back. Because in reality, I feel like Eric just wants to be like kind of like me and you. He just wants to spend his Friday night with the boys, either playing Xbox or going to a bar or just playing Magic the Gathering. That's what Eric wants to do. So this idea that he's like pursuing Ariel to be with her and like have a happy ending, like dude, like I don't believe it. I feel like as soon as they get on that boat, they're gonna start having problems now that she can start talking. Because my girl Ariel, she just got her feet, man. She wants to like travel the world. She wants to learn. She wants to experiment things, and Prince Eric's just not gonna take care of her. So I'm right here. That's all I gotta say. I'm right here. I'm ready to explore the world with you, Ariel.
I don't know. You might not want to tell your wife that, but okay.
she doesn't hear this podcast, so,
Okay,
so I
there
don't
you
gotta
go.
worry about it.
So we're on the safe side. But no, you know what? I'm gonna
And I, and
disagree
I'm
with.
and
Yeah,
I'm taking my daughter because I think Ariel will be a great mom. So I'm taking my daughter with me. So
absolutely, man. You want to go for a ride? Jump on stepmommy's back. Let's go. No, but it's like, you know what? Like, so I do disagree with you, and it's funny because when you texted me that, I was laughing. I'm like, oh my god, Carlos, like you're really criticizing like his like potential to like really be about Ariel. And so going into watching the movie, I already had that like, man, what is he talking about? And I see what you mean, right? And I think even when we were texting and we were having a conversation a little bit about the movie, and this is again 30 like mid 30 to late 30-year-old dudes like having conversations about Little Mermaid. But when we were texting about it, I was just kind of sitting here like, dude, like, no, I didn't see it like that, but I get how you feel that it was just kind of not believable, right? Well, one is the story kind of makes sense for it being shortened and being very romanticized so quick. Part of the movie magic, we'll believe it. But no, I think they actually did it pretty well, right? To my interpretation of it, and again, for people to take whatever side, if you want to go with Carlos, and you should say they should like
no.
explore the single life first. But no, like my interpretation was simple that, right? I think it's just like obviously he cares about his like mom, his like queen and his land and all this stuff. Even though for them being royalty, everybody else looks like they're poor as crap, and I'm just like, you guys don't take care of your people very well. I'm like, it seems like a small community, right? But they're not. Anyway, so he clearly is on the mission to kind of enrich their island a little bit better.
Culture, yeah.
Yeah, and so it makes sense that he's kind of more mission focused on that. And the only reason why Ariel like kind of got him like that is because she is a siren after all, right? And I like that the movie really focused on that too. Like sirens, mythologically speaking, are creatures that, with their voice, they lure like fishermen and all kinds of like seafaring people they attracted them to the point where they were kind of mesmerized and they had no control over their emotions. They were just in lust with them. And it's funny because we're watching the movie and I'm just thinking like, how twisted is it that they're actually leaning really hard into the siren part? Because it's actually almost like kind of a weird abuse of power to be like Ariel, for her to be like, hey, let me sing you a song. Now you're mine, bitch. Let's go. Because that's truly what happens. So, right. So I feel like Eric almost didn't have a choice. He did
Mm,
fall in love with her because of the siren song and not because he met a beautiful girl who just so happens to show up in this like island. And I think the rest of the things just has to do with the fact that he was so in love because of the siren song that then one, like, when he got back and he woke up, he's kind of sitting here like, where's my elusive girl that rescued me? And he's more infatuated, more in lust. He's thinking more from like that siren thing and not who's this like girl that just came into my castle, like who cares about her, let's find this other girl. And that's where the movie did also win me, is that the way that they fell in love while she couldn't speak, with Sebastian and Flounder and freaking Scuttle's like help, it was great. Like I believe the story, and that's where I was telling you. I'm like, okay, so I guess I guess
no,
it's being forced
no.
that Eric likes it, but
No, and you know what? Honestly, like, what I said is just like my thoughts as an older, gentleman. I honestly believe if I was 8 years old, or back to be when I was six and I fell in love with the Little Mermaid, if I was watching this for the first time, like, it makes perfect sense, man. Like,
Mhm.
this movie at the end of the day, it's meant for like a new generation, and they're gonna love it. They're gonna see this movie. A lot of girls and little boys are gonna fall either in love with Ariel or Eric, and that's what this movie was made for. So they could carry this experiences that we carry as our in our childhoods, so when they're 30 and they decide to remake this all over again, they can take their kids and say like, hey, here's the Little Mermaid. I hope you fall in love with it the same way I did when I was growing up.
I just hope that you don't have the problem with, and all you guys with these kids now, of the fake expectations of being able to fall in love within like 3 days. Like, come on, man.
Mm.
Like, be careful out there,
Yeah, and
No,
I
but
think
yeah,
that is
it's
the
really.
right message that like Frozen, the first one, got like, hey,
Oh
you don't need
yeah.
a yeah, you don't need a man, and all you really was more about like the sisterly bond. But yeah,
No, I mean
yeah,
it's
yeah,
like.
yeah. I didn't even think about that till you like mentioned it right now. Like, yeah, this whole back idea to like falling in love with a man so they could solve your problems.
So that's what I'm saying. As an adult, and you think about like you lean into the whole her being a siren. Like it's kind of a cool idea, right? Because it's kind of
Yeah,
almost like a weird, not creepy, but kind of it could be really dark. But then as a kid, you don't really know. Like you might know what a siren is because they told you, but maybe you don't think of the darker imagery of like sirens luring people to their deaths, right?
yeah.
And the whole point of the sirens like power of the voice was like kill people and eat people. So really dark, really gruesome. But again, we're talking about a Disney movie, and they did it. I don't know, they did it beautiful. But yes, Prince Eric, I still think he did good. I like the actor. I think he had like a really great
Yeah.
performance as well. But yes, absolutely, he was totally not ready for Ariel, and Dustin Disturber. That's a whole different point. I agree with you there. I mean, Sebastian, give him a chance, man. That guy's been doing more for her all along.
That's funny, dude. When Ursula showed up in, her human form, did you have any expectations of how she was gonna look? Like, part of me thought that they were gonna almost like take a shot at all these haters that wanted the Little Mermaid to be a certain way, and I'm like, oh, watch them portray her as, we did get her in to be like Caucasian, but I thought for a split second they were also gonna make her hair red, and we were gonna be like, oh, like here's the Little Mermaid you wanted, but guess what, like, Ariel's the one you're actually in love with. And I just thought there was going to be like a little bit more to it. I'm kind of glad that they didn't, but was there any expectation there? But I did think that the actress that played her for that small like couple scenes like did a really great job. But honestly, like I would not change Haley at all because I think she just brought everything that I wanted to see to this interpretation.
Yeah, no, I mean for that whole scene, no, it didn't. I don't think I had any expectations going into it. I think for me, it was more like I already got what I wanted, right? Like we had really good characters, really good actors playing these characters. And so I was really satisfied. So by the time I remembered that was a part of the movie as we were leading up to it, I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, I wonder who they are going to have play her, right? Not like what actress, but
Yeah.
just in general, like what is she going to look like? And, I don't know about like similarity in like the way that they did in appearance, but I think that was my only important thing. I'm like, I hope they make her even resemble Melissa McCarthy a little bit or Ursula a little
Mm,
bit, so that at least there is some kind of like
That would have been cool. Like
Ooh,
people, yeah, like
yeah,
people would have been a little bit more like, "Why is Prince doing this? Why is the Prince
yeah.
doing this?" But just the fact that she even looked like a normal, beautiful girl, like I'm like, okay, I totally understand like why all of a sudden he wants to get married that same day.
Yeah, but I mean, and that's the thing, the whole power of the siren, right? So she didn't even need to look beautiful if she didn't want to, right? She could have
Yeah,
stayed looking like Ursula if she really wanted to, and she could just use Ariel's voice to essentially like make him fall in love with her. But again, that wasn't the point. But no, I mean, I liked her. I don't think there was an expectation for me to like her have a certain type of hair or anything, but I do appreciate that in the movie they referred to like Ariel again as like red because that's the
yeah,
thing that you kind of like seen before, where it's like she has the beautiful red hair, and it's it's a very like really specific like detail about her. So I'm glad that she
yeah.
was the only one that got to keep it, and all her sisters were all like crazy looking, very diverse, and they're
Yeah,
all beautiful.
dude, I kind of want to look up like the seas where they're, meant to be from, because obviously that means that like, based on the culture or the area, that's why they look the way they do. But
Yeah.
I was really in like, I really like if I knew Ariel's my personal friend and I knew she was gonna marry Eric, I would be like, hey, do you mind, giving my number to your sister with complete white hair? Like, that's the one that I really, really liked.
So you like the one from the Arctic, right? That's
Yeah,
what it
yeah.
is.
I don't
Yeah.
know. I just
See.
like I'm a like a Final Fantasy kind of like guy where I like this like white hair people, and so it's not even just the way that not the skin color or anything like that. It's just the fact that she had this cool white hair, honestly, that I'm attracted to. But I liked her a lot.
Well, she was the most prominent, like the one that just caught your attention for that reason. No, I mean that was a
Mm.
good detail. Like, absolutely. I mean, when the daughters like showed up, and then you see him being very diverse, and then he mentions how they all come from the different seas. You're like, oh, dude,
That
this
was
movie's so
cool.
great. Yeah, it's cool
Yeah,
because it's like if you really wanted to, you could probably try to figure out where they're all from. And I think to the whole thing with Disney, it's great because these are all princesses from all different parts of the world. And again, for you guys, for kids watching this, it's great, right? Like you can pick
yeah.
whoever you want to like associate with the most, and there you go. And Carlos wants to be a white-haired
Oh,
merman,
get out
so
of
he could date that
it.
sister. Then go for it, man.
Oh
But
man.
I don't know. Now you're going against Ariel. What's
Oh,
up with Ariel? You're like flip
I
flopping
know.
now.
I mean, Ariel's taken, man. All I want to know about the white hair mermaid is like, does she have a really long sword that I can play with on the side?
There you
uh,
go.
no, and just on a quick note, man. I know when I talked to my wife, she really loved this movie too. I think the first time I showed her the original was, this year, and it was the first time her seeing it.
Wow.
And she told me that after she saw it, she cried, I think 3 times during the film. At any point, I never got like that. And that doesn't mean that there's something wrong with me because I cry all the time during movies. I guess nothing about it really gave me that tears moment. But was there any
What?
feelings from like, yeah, dude, I don't know. Was there a part that was meant to be for me to like, bust out the Kleenex? Because I guess I just did not have that in me.
Yes, yes. So in solidarity, I will confess too that I am not a big crier during movies, but I definitely like I get so emotional with movies
Oh,
because
dude, yeah,
that's part of you, like everybody listening. That's the whole point of movies and shows is to really connect with them and connect with the characters. And I hope that you get some tears here and there from like a certain movie, right? And if not, let me know and I'll make you a list of movies that will make you cry. But anyways, when you told me that too, and you're like, oh, I wonder if like you're gonna make it feel that way, right? And when I'm in movies, I try to hold my tears a little bit, right? A little bit. But for me specifically, where I couldn't at the very end was with when Queen Triton came back,
yeah.
and they had that moment of reconnecting, and he's
Um,
like, oh, like like she's like, oh, you gave your life for me, and he's like, oh, and you gave your or you did what you could to save me. And again, suckers for like parental relationships and kind of how those play into like who we are as people. I fathers, man, fathers. That was
well,
the moment for me, man. That's when I
yeah.
got like a little teary eye and I couldn't like push it back up, and I had glasses, so I'm like, no, I'm not even gonna take them off.
the
I'm like, I'm just gonna cry a little.
and for anybody saying like Carlos doesn't cry at this point or he has no heart, like I'm the guy though that Encanto when it came out, that song where the grandma explains like her backstory about when she met the grand her granddad and he was killed. to this day, like I cannot watch that scene without all of a sudden like crying. Like even now, just talking about it, it makes me cry because it's so sad. This idea of like the grandma, or the struggle that she went through, like she lost her love when she just had these three beautiful kids, and like I seriously have to watch the movie like 10 times in a row, like for me to all of a sudden get used to like the idea of this happening, for me not to cry. So like I cry all the time, but in this movie, I don't know, and that there should have been moments, but I guess I just it wasn't with me with this one.
I
But
mean,
again, I
yeah.
loved it. I loved the movie, and I thought it was very well, very emotionally well done.
Well, real quick, just because you mentioned it, the one part in every Disney or the one Disney movie, every like the single part in this Disney movie that always makes me cry is when Mufasa dies, man. And I
Oh,
told you,
okay.
Lion King, man. As many times as I watched that movie, every time that he dies and you have Simba over his dead body, especially when he thinks that he kills him, man, just every time I just cry. I'm like, what the heck? I'm not talking about like sobbing,
Yeah,
but it's like little tears here and there. But no,
man,
yeah, beautiful movie. Yeah.
I'm kind of sad Raul's not here because I, I got a feeling that guy would have been like, I cry at nothing in life. Just how he says he doesn't dream, he probably doesn't cry. Like, what a man,
he
what a
he
man that
he,
guy
he
is.
would have been one of Prince Eric's like crewmates who would have been trying to like harpoon the Little Mermaid. It's like there's a Little Mermaid, harpoon her. Like he really doesn't
Well,
like dogs. Like nah.
and I hope he doesn't get mad at us saying that he doesn't even want to watch this movie. So there's a good chance he might not even listen to this review. So I think we're safe on that, on that from him listening and getting mad at us.
But if you do, Raul, we believe you like dogs. We'll stick with that one.
But anything else, man? Anything else you want to say? Again, I think we did a I'm really love this conversation that we had because again, I did not expect to have a review of the Little Mermaid. You would have thought we would have had a review for the Guardians of the Galaxy 3 before we had this review, but we're still planning on doing the Guardians of the Galaxy review. But this is a movie that me and you just saw, and we're like, hey, let's talk about it, man, because we really both like loved it, and it's people are gonna be seeing it. This movie, it's probably going to get guaranteed to make a lot of money this weekend. I foresee it's hopefully going to cross the 1 million mark. A lot of these tend to do that, but we'll see. We'll see how the box office holds because there's a lot of things coming. Spider Verse is coming.
Oh
Like I
yeah,
think
next week.
next Friday, man. Next Friday, so I'm going to be seeing that, and we're probably going to have to talk to you about that movie as well.
Absolutely. I mean, no, I think again we didn't get to discuss and talk crap about the other live action remakes, but I think this definitely by far. I don't know. I don't know if I want to put it on the top, but I think it is because my only other movie that I love as much of the live action remakes is Aladdin. And Aladdin,
Hmm.
because it was so fun, it was like so beautifully colored. Like I love Will Smith. Always be a fan of his, and he did a good job. No Robin Williams, but he did a good job as a genie. So,
Yeah.
anyways, I think Aladdin's still my favorite, but I think The Little Mermaid by far still kind of hit it up there.
Yeah.
And I think it's just a difference of like visuals and stuff like that. But again, beautiful
No.
movie. Yeah,
No, no, I'm there with you, man. Like we didn't have a list of like all the live action, so like I've kind of even forgotten about Aladdin, but I know people don't really love that movie, at least from like a critic standpoint. But I personally, I agree with you. I think
it's
it was
fun.
well done. Some of the story beats that they took that are a little bit different from the originally are actually well done. And like I think the reason why I really like it is because it was directed by Guy Ritchie, and I like a lot of his movies. Like me and you are always talking about his movies because he always either has some of these like Jason Statham in them or some of these other big players in them. But yeah, Guy Ritchie, Aladdin. I'm hoping he does a part two for it because I think he did a good job, and I definitely know that Will Smith could be. It's not could need. He definitely needs the love right now. So I think an Aladdin part two will definitely get him a lot of love if he chooses to do another sequel to that movie.
Well, that's a quick thing before we end. Like, do you think these movies need part twos? Like, knowing that half of them
Hmm.
have been getting some hate, right? Because again,
Yeah.
Lion King, again, for the animated being my favorite, I hate the live action. So for me, I'm like, don't go into like Lion King 2, don't go into anything else. Just leave it alone, like let it
I
rest.
I've never seen Lion King 2, but from my understanding, it's supposed to be really, really good because it deals with the whole Scar's son is trying to like, get together with Simba's daughter. And, I could see from a story plot thing, like that could actually be a really well story if it was done well. And to my understanding, it is a good movie. So I should go back and watch it just to see if like it does hold up or it is a good story. But to answer your question, I think some of them could deserve. Like I know with the Lion King, they already said that they're doing a Mufasa story prequel, and the idea that they're doing a Mufasa prequel doesn't bother me. It's just the idea that these lines are gonna look real, and that's the part that I hate, man. I just wish they had not gone that route with them. But yeah, like I would love to see like Aladdin 2. I don't know if The Little
That Aladdin
Mermaid needs
too.
a sequel. I don't know if The Beauty and the Beast needs a sequel, but I think Aladdin definitely you could see the potential in that because it has magic and all these like magical elements to it. What about you? Like, do you
Yeah.
think so or no?
Well, I mean, that's the thing. It's like again, I mean, and most of these movies have like part twos, part threes. Like, and if you guys aren't familiar with it, like again, if you didn't grow up on these movies, like the animated ones, like some of them are actually pretty good, and some of them sometimes a little better than the first ones, at least
Yeah.
because they're like, oh, everybody loved the first one. Let me give you more story.
Dude, like
Um,
Aladdin has the one where he meets his father and they're going after like the Midas glove that can turn anything into gold. And from what I remember, I really love that. I mean, I could watch it today and probably be like, oh, that was a really bad one, but I really enjoyed that Aladdin. The
was
King of
that
Thieves. I think it might
yeah?
have
But
been
was
called
that
like King. Yeah, go ahead.
what was that a movie? Because I he had an animated series too. But I see that's what I'm saying. Some of those
Yeah.
are like I'm like, was that the animated series or was that the movies?
Well, like
But yeah.
I don't know if you knew this, but Aladdin 2 is actually three episodes that were that they decided to make it into a movie. So if you watch Aladdin
Oh,
2, it's actually was meant to be like three specific or I think it was three specific like episodes for the
yeah.
TV show, but they decided to like cut them and put them together and make it into a movie. So that's like a fun fact if you didn't know that about
Yeah,
Aladdin 2.
I did it. No, and I love Aladdin too. But yeah, no, I think Aladdin would definitely be one of them. I mean, honestly, I'm not gonna lie. I do want a second Lion King movie, but I do want it like in a like better done. I do like the idea because I knew about the Mufasa, but that's different because I feel like that's a good approach because you already have the Lion King. You had Lion King 1.5. You had Lion King 2. You had like the Simba's or not Simba's Pride. I forget the third one what it's called, and you had the TV show. Same thing, and so it's like I don't know. Maybe it's just that. Like I just want to see more. I do like. I mean, to kind of like getting closer to the end of this. That's one of the things with everything we talk about. Not necessarily anime, but when we talk about movies, when we talk about these like things that have to do with like us growing up and these things that we saw as like children, and to be able to see them better with better technology with like great CGI live action, like this is the stuff that you could only dream of when you were a
Dude,
little kid. So I mean, keep bringing them. I really don't
dude,
care. They could be bad, like I guess I'll watch them.
Dude, if I had the Thanos glove, the Infinity Stones, and I could all of a sudden wish a new Mulan movie to be
Oh
done the
man,
way
don't
they
hate it. Yeah.
to be done the way they animated, because dude, I need Make a Man Out of Me, the song to be part of the movie, and just the idea that they didn't have that song, like that's the best damn song of like if you gave me like top 10 like Disney songs, like I would probably put Let's Make a Man Out of Me like either one, two, or three, man. Like that's the only spot for it.
All right, I got you. See, and again, we didn't even get to talk to it. We need to talk about it. But I like Mulan, but for different elements. But when you compare it to the animated one, absolutely
Yeah,
also kind of feel like it dropped it. But I mean, so yeah, I mean, I think in general, that's the point. Just keep bringing them because I'll keep watching all this stuff. I don't think I care at the end of the day. Again, Little
yeah.
Mermaid was a happy surprise that it was so good. So good. Everything else, again, if it's not good, oh well, I already seen it. I might still play it a little bit, just kind of piss off my dog while there's like lions running around. But
Man.
other than that, yep.
No, well, man, I feel like we did a great job, man. I'm gonna high five you on the screen and say goodbye to you, man. But hopefully we get to talk about Demon Slayer soon, and because the next episode is sure to be a banger. So I'll talk to you, man. Ramon, have a good night, man.
Hey, see you guys.
See ya.